politicians dither about it. A report officially released by the Pentagon today but previewed last night by the Associated Press, pointing to a disturbing correlation between the extended tours brought on by the war in Iraq and the number of suicides within the military. 101 American soldiers killed themselves last year. Nearly a third of those, 27, occurred in Iraq. That marks the highest suicide rate in the armed forces in 26 years. And there is one more horrific new detail tonight. 900 more soldiers tried to kill themselves last year, but failed. Army officials say the driving factor in most of the suicides was the strain put on family and relationships by frequent and lengthy combat deployments. Joining us now, Brandon Friedman, who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan and has written a book on his experiences titled The War I Always Wanted, The Illusion of Glory and the Reality of War. Great thanks for your time and for your service, sir.
Thanks for having me on, Keith.
The report found a significant relationship between suicide and the number of days served in a combat zone. These results are from last year before the extended deployments from the Pentagon when they went from 12 months to 15 months. So is this disgusting number only going to be worse looking back at 2007?
Well, the reason that the numbers of suicides are so high is because the force is stressed. And when you send soldiers over there repeatedly for 12-month tours and now 15-month tours, and you only give them 2 weeks off during each of those time periods, bad things like this are going to happen. And a high number of suicides is just one way in which this manifests itself. So I think we probably could expect to see more as long as we keep doing things the way we're doing them.
The report indicates, at least the Army number, 26% of those who committed suicide had some sort of diagnosed psychological disorder. 4%, though, only 4% had been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. That number seems really low. Is there an inference to be drawn here that many of those soldiers never even got diagnosed, let alone got the psychological help they needed after serving so long in combat?
Absolutely. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is that the military and the VA have no streamlined way of quantifying or determining who has PTSD or who doesn't have it. You know, and the other thing is you have this culture in the military where people see it as a sign of weakness if they admit to having PTSD. But there's a book by Jonathan Shea about PTSD where he says that PTSD is a combat injury just like any other injury. You know, when somebody gets their arm blown off, nobody says that they have missing arm disorder. It's just a combat injury. And PTSD needs to be seen the same way. It needs to be seen that way by the troops and by the Department of Defense and by the VA. And so the government needs to be spending more money on finding treatment for these guys once they get home.
You know, every time that this has come up in war dating back to the shell shock of the First World War, it's been impossible to get people to believe it's actually, as you say, a combat-related injury. And then they finally get people to thinking that way, and then you reclassify it, change the name in some way, and we work through the whole process again from the beginning. But here, there's something even more disturbing, as if this isn't all entirely disturbing. Most of these victims, these soldiers, didn't kill themselves till they were home. The administration says it's trying to fix the overstretched veteran services, especially for those who were diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, trying to make sure that family members know how to look for suicidal tendencies in their loved ones. But is that going to do anything for the soldiers who have come home now?
Well, I mean, it'll do something. But the thing with PTSD, one of the really insidious things about it is that it often has a delayed onset. So a lot of times guys come home, and this is what we see with these suicides. Guys come home, they don't realize they have it. They weren't exhibiting symptoms while they were in the military. And then 6, 8, 9 months after they get home, they start exhibiting symptoms. And I talk to guys every day. You know, I was over there. I did a tour in Afghanistan and another tour in Iraq. And I talk to my guys now, and I hear these stories from them. And I'm not a doctor, but they tell me what they're experiencing. And most of these guys aren't seeking treatment. They're not in treatment. But the symptoms they have are indicative of somebody who has PTSD. And it's way more than the numbers that you would see given by the VA or the Department of Defense.
Yeah, and if you don't know you have that, you think you are just going nuts and not able to readjust to real life. It's a horrifying thing. Brandon Friedman of VoteVets.org and a veteran of service in Afghanistan and Iraq, author of The War I Always Wanted. Again, thanks for your time. Thanks for your service to our country, sir.
Thanks for having me on.
Mine safety.